The thunderous clap of the engine's failure echoed across Lake Weston, leaving Lucas Lancaster stranded with his 6-year-old daughter Emma in the middle of the water. Their fishing day had turned into a floating nightmare as dark clouds gathered ominously overhead. "Daddy, are we stuck?" Emma asked, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she peered over the edge of their weathered fishing boat. "Just a little hiccup, sweet pea," Lucas replied with forced cheerfulness, wiping grease on his already stained jeans as he investigated the sputtering outboard motor. "Daddy will fix it." But as he stared at the ancient engine, the same one he'd been nursing along for 3 years, since his wife died, Lucas knew this was more than a hiccup. This was potentially the final gasp of the only luxury he could still provide for his daughter: their Saturday fishing trips. The 32-year-old mechanic had been stretched thin since becoming Emma's only parent. Between juggling shifts at Gordon's auto shop, school pickups, and making ends meet in their modest 2-bedroom apartment, these fishing trips were sacred, their special time together away from the stress of their everyday lives. Lucas wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of grease. "Let me just check one more thing," he told Emma, who was now happily playing with her stuffed dolphin, seemingly unconcerned about their predicament. As he bent over the engine again, the sound of an approaching watercraft made him look up. A sleek white yacht was slowing down beside them, its gleaming hull making his 15-foot aluminum fishing boat look like floating junk by comparison. "Need some help?" called a woman's voice. Lucas straightened, shading his eyes against the sun. Standing at the rail of the yacht was a woman with copper-colored hair whipping in the breeze. Even from a distance, he could tell her white sundress was expensive, as was everything else about her and her vessel. "Just a stubborn engine," he called back, pride making him hesitant to accept help. "We'll be fine." "Dad, that boat is huge," Emma whispered loudly, eyes wide with wonder. The yacht maneuvered closer, and the woman whom Lucas now could see was around his age and remarkably beautiful looked genuinely concerned. "That storm's coming in fast," she pointed to the horizon. "Let me give you a tow to the marina." As if on cue, thunder rumbled in the distance. Lucas glanced at Emma, then back at the darkening sky. Pride was one thing, putting his daughter at risk was another. "That would be great, actually. Thank you," he conceded. 20 minutes later, their fishing boat was secured to the yacht's stern, and Lucas and Emma were aboard the most luxurious vessel either had ever seen. The woman introduced herself as Juliet Novak, extending a slender hand with a warm smile that reached her hazel eyes. "Lucas Lancaster," he replied, suddenly conscious of his grease-stained hands and worn clothing. "And this is my daughter, Emma." "Hello, Emma." Juliet crouched down to the little girl's level. "I love your dolphin. Does he have a name?" "She's a girl," Emma corrected seriously. "Her name is Splash, and she can swim really fast, but only when no one's looking." Juliet laughed, a genuine sound that made something flutter in Lucas's chest. "That's a very special talent. I'm impressed." As they headed toward the marina, Lucas couldn't help but notice how Juliet moved with grace around the yacht, clearly at home. She wore no wedding ring, but a woman with a boat like this probably had a wealthy boyfriend or husband somewhere. "So what do you do, Lucas?" Juliet asked as she expertly navigated the yacht. "I'm a mechanic at Gordon's auto shop in town," he said, straightening his shoulders slightly. He might not be wealthy, but he was good at his job. "Been there 8 years now." "A mechanic," interest flickered in her eyes. "I've got terrible luck with engines myself. This yacht's been giving me fits. The marina mechanic says it needs parts that won't arrive for 2 weeks. Lucas glanced at the control panel, recognizing the model. "What's it doing?" "Stalling at low speeds, making a knocking sound when I accelerate." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "Could be fuel delivery or ignition timing issues. I mainly work on cars, but engines have similar principles." "Could you take a look?" she asked. "I'd pay you, of course." Before he could answer, Emma tugged at his hand. "Daddy, can I see the rest of the boat, please?" Juliet smiled. "I'll show you both around while we head to shore." The tour revealed 3 luxurious cabins, A fully equipped kitchen, it's called a galley on a boat, Juliet explained to Emma, and a living area with panoramic windows. Everything screamed money, from the teak decking to the leather furnishings. This is incredible, Lucas said, feeling increasingly out of place. It's just a boat, Juliet replied with a shrug that seemed genuine. My grandfather taught me to sail when I was Emma's age. Being on the water feels like home. By the time they reached the marina, the storm was breaking. Rain pelted the deck as they secured both vessels. Let me at least look at your engine before we go, Lucas offered, seeing Emma was happily drawing with crayons Juliet had produced from a drawer. It might be something simple. Juliet seemed surprised but pleased. You don't have to consider it a thank you for the rescue, he insisted. Working in the yacht's engine room, Lucas found himself impressed by the machinery, but quickly identified the problem: a clogged fuel filter and improperly gapped spark plugs. As he worked, Juliet brought him water and asked intelligent questions about what he was doing. You really know your stuff, she remarked, passing him a wrench. Lucas smiled, feeling at ease for the first time since boarding her yacht. Engines make sense to me, always have. Unlike people, she asked with perceptive eyes. Sometimes, he admitted. Especially since my wife died. 3 years ago, he added, not sure why he was sharing this with a stranger. Cancer. Juliet's face softened. I'm sorry, that must be incredibly hard. Emma gets me through each day, he said simply, turning back to the engine. There, try it now. When the engine purred to life without the knocking sound, Juliet's face lit up. That's amazing. The marina wanted $2,000 to fix this. Lucas wiped his hands on a rag. They were probably quoting for a complete fuel system overhaul. You didn't need it. What do I owe you? She asked, reaching for her purse. Lucas shook his head. Nothing, like I said, it's a thank you for helping us out. At least let me buy you dinner, she insisted. Both of you, I know a great place right here at the marina. Lucas hesitated. The responsible thing would be to get Emma home for her Saturday night routine bath, bed. But the way Emma was looking excitedly between them, and something in Juliet's genuine smile made him nod. That would be nice. Thank you. Dinner at the lighthouse was unlike any restaurant experience Lucas had had in years. Emma was entranced by the aquarium wall, and Juliet asked her questions about her favorite fish, listening with real interest to the girl's animated answers. So, what brought you to Lake Weston today? Lucas asked as they enjoyed their seafood. I needed to clear my head, Juliet said. Work has been intense lately. What do you do? A slight hesitation. I'm in business development. My family has a company. The way she downplayed it made Lucas suspect it was more significant than she let on. As the evening progressed, Lucas found himself increasingly drawn to Juliet. There was a genuineness to her that contrasted with her obvious wealth. She listened when he talked about his challenges as a single father, offered thoughtful comments, and made both him and Emma laugh. By the time they said goodbye in the parking lot, Lucas felt a connection he hadn't experienced in years. Juliet crouched down to say goodbye to Emma, who impulsively hugged her. Will we see you again? Emma asked boldly. Lucas began to form an apology for his daughter's directness, but Juliet smiled warmly. I hope so, she said, looking up at Lucas. Actually, I was thinking if you're free tomorrow, maybe I could take you both out on the yacht, to properly thank you for fixing the engine. Lucas knew he should say no. This woman lived in a completely different world from his. But Emma was already bouncing with excitement, and if he was honest with himself, he wanted to see Juliet again, too. We'd like that, he said, but I insist on bringing lunch, Juliet beamed. It's a date. The next day dawned clear and perfect. Lucas woke early to prepare sandwiches and snacks, conscious of his budget, but wanting to contribute something to their outing. Emma was up and dressed in record time, chattering about boats and dolphins and her new friend, Miss Juliet. She's just being nice to us, Em. Lucas cautioned gently, not wanting his daughter to form an attachment to someone who would likely drift out of their lives as quickly as she drifted in. But when they arrived at the marina, Juliet was waiting with genuine enthusiasm, dressed in shorts and a simple t-shirt that somehow made her look even more beautiful than the day before. Out on the lake, with Emma safely in a life jacket, Juliet showed Lucas how to handle the yacht. Her hands occasionally brushed his on the wheel, sending unexpected electricity through his body. It had been so long since he'd felt anything like attraction that he almost didn't recognize it. They anchored in a secluded cove for lunch, and Juliet seemed genuinely appreciative of his simple sandwiches. After they ate, she produced inflatable water toys for Emma, who shrieked with delight. "You didn't have to get those," Lucas said as they watched Emma play from the yacht's platform. "I wanted to," Juliet replied. "She's a wonderful girl. You're doing an amazing job with her." The sincerity in her voice touched something deep in Lucas. "It's not always easy," he admitted. "There are days when I wonder if I'm giving her enough." "You're giving her what matters most," Juliet said softly. "Love, security, your time." As Emma napped below deck later that afternoon, Lucas and Juliet sat on the bow, talking as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. He learned that she loved classic movies, had a degree in business and environmental science, and volunteered teaching sailing to underprivileged kids. She listened attentively as he talked about his dreams of opening his own shop someday and his concerns about providing for Emma's future. What he didn't learn was just how wealthy she truly was, or that the family company she had mentioned was Novak Industries, a multi-billion-dollar corporation with interests ranging from sustainable energy to shipping. The day ended too quickly. As they said goodbye at the marina, Juliet handed him her phone number. "I'd really like to see you again, Lucas, both of you." "I'd like that too," he admitted, pocketing the number. "Thank you for today." That night, after putting Emma to bed, Lucas sat at his small kitchen table, staring at Juliet's number. Against his better judgment, he texted her a thank you message. Her immediate response made him smile. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into an unexpected pattern. Juliet joined them for a simple dinner at Lucas's apartment, not batting an eye at the modest surroundings. Lucas and Emma went aboard the yacht again the following weekend. Juliet came to Emma's soccer practice, cheering as enthusiastically as any parent. Lucas found himself thinking about her constantly, even as a voice in his head warned him that women like Juliet didn't end up with struggling mechanics. Still, there was an ease between them, a natural connection that felt increasingly significant. One evening, after Emma was asleep, Juliet invited Lucas for a walk along the lakefront. Under a canopy of stars, she told him about her parents' deaths in a plane crash when she was 24, and how she'd suddenly found herself responsible for a business empire she hadn't been prepared to run. "That must have been overwhelming," Lucas said, unconsciously taking her hand as they walked. "It was," she admitted. "Everyone expected me to fail. Some people wanted me to fail. But you didn't," she smiled faintly. "No, I didn't, but success came with isolation." "People see the money, the position, not me." Lucas squeezed her hand. "I see you." The kiss that followed was gentle at first, then deepened with a hunger that surprised them both. When they finally pulled apart, Juliet's eyes shimmered in the moonlight. "I should tell you something," she began, but Lucas's phone rang the babysitter calling to say Emma had woken with a nightmare and was asking for him. "I have to go," he said apologetically. "Of course," Juliet nodded immediately. "Emma needs you." The understanding in her voice only made him care for her more. 3 days later, Lucas was at work when his phone rang. Emma's school was calling she had fallen during recess and needed to go to the hospital for stitches. Panic gripped him as he looked desperately around the garage. His boss was out, and he was the only mechanic on duty. He couldn't leave, but Emma needed him. Without thinking, he called Juliet. "I'll be there in 15 minutes, she promised without hesitation. 2 hours later, as Lucas rushed into the emergency room, he found Juliet sitting beside Emma, reading her a story while his daughter's freshly stitched forehead sported a bandage. "Daddy," Emma called. I got 4 stitches and I didn't cry much, and Miss Juliet said I'm the bravest girl she knows. Relief washed over him as he hugged Emma carefully. Over his daughter's head, his eyes met Juliet's, conveying a gratitude words couldn't express. After ensuring Emma was truly okay, Lucas walked Juliet to her car. I don't know how to thank you, he said, emotion thick in his voice. You don't need to thank me, she replied. I care about her, and about you, Lucas. The intensity in her eyes made his heart race. Juliet, I need to be honest with you. I'm falling for you, but I can't help feeling like I don't fit in your world. I'm a mechanic struggling to make ends meet. He gestured vaguely, clearly used to much more. Juliet took his hands in hers. There's something I should have told you from the beginning. My family's company, the one I mentioned, it's Novak Industries. Lucas blinked, the name registering immediately. Novak Industries was everywhere, their logo on buildings, products, mentioned in news reports about Fortune 500 companies. You're that Novak? He asked, his voice suddenly hoarse. She nodded, watching his reaction carefully. I didn't intentionally hide it, but I enjoyed being just Juliet with you. Not Juliet Novak, CEO and heiress. Lucas took a step back, mind reeling. You're not just wealthy, you're a billionaire, technically, she finished quietly. Does that change how you feel about me? The question hung between them. Lucas looked at this woman who had just spent hours comforting his child in an emergency room, who laughed genuinely at his jokes, who kissed him like he was the only man in the world. No, he said finally, but it might change how possible this is. Why? She challenged. Because of pride. Because your world has expectations. Because people will talk. Because someday you might resent being with someone who can't contribute equally. Juliet stepped closer. I've spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from me, my money, my influence, my company. You fixed my engine and refused payment. You made me sandwiches instead of trying to impress me with expensive gifts. You showed me your real life instead of pretending to be something you're not. Her voice softened. Don't you understand how precious that is to me? When he remained silent, processing her words, she continued, And Emma, she's extraordinary, Lucas. The way you're raising her, the father you are to her, that's worth more than any bank account. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. I need time to think about all this. Understanding crossed Juliet's face. Of course. The following week was the longest of Lucas's life. He missed Juliet with an intensity that surprised him, but fear kept him from calling her. What if they tried and failed? What would that do to Emma, who was already asking when they would see Miss Juliet again on Friday afternoon? As Lucas was finishing a transmission repair, his boss approached with an unusual expression. Someone's here to see you, Gordon said. Says she has a business proposition. Lucas wiped his hands and stepped into the office to find Juliet, dressed in business attire that screamed CEO. His heart lurched at the sight of her. Hi, she said simply. Hi, he echoed, suddenly tongue-tied. I have a proposition, she stated, all business. Gordon's retiring next year, isn't he? Lucas nodded, surprised. How did you know that? I did my research. He's looking for a buyer for the shop. She handed him a folder. I want to invest in a mechanic with exceptional skills who wants to own his own business. Lucas stared at the folder, then at her. Are you offering to buy the shop for me? No, she corrected firmly. I'm offering to be an investor in your business. You would be the majority owner and operator. I would be a silent partner with a 25% stake. She held up a hand before he could respond. This isn't charity, Lucas. It's a sound business decision. Gordon's has a strong reputation, and you're the reason for much of that. Juliet, read the proposal, she pressed. Show it to a lawyer. It's a standard business investment with market rate terms. If you say no to me personally, that's one thing. But don't deny yourself this opportunity out of pride. After she left, Lucas sat stunned, the folder heavy in his hands. That evening, after consulting with a friend who practiced business law, he realized the proposal was indeed legitimate, favorable to him, certainly, but not charity. The next morning, he drove to the address on Juliet's business card, the gleaming headquarters of Novak Industries. He felt out of place in the marble lobby, but was immediately escorted to the top floor when he gave his name. Juliet's assistant led him into a corner office with panoramic views of the city and lake beyond. Juliet rose from behind an imposing desk, her professional demeanor softening when she saw him. "You came," she said, hope evident in her voice. "I did," he replied, "and I've read the proposal. And I'll accept your investment," he said carefully, "on one condition." She raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "That it has nothing to do with us personally. Whether something develops between us or not, this remains a business arrangement." Juliet nodded slowly. "I can agree to that, and is there something developing between us, Lucas?" He took a deep breath. "I've spent the week thinking about everything, about you, about Emma, about what matters in life." He stepped closer. "I realized that walking away from you would be the biggest mistake of my life. If you're willing to navigate the complications, so am I." The smile that broke across her face was worth every moment of doubt. "I was hoping you'd say that." 6 months later, Lucas signed the final papers, making him the owner of what would soon be Lancaster Automotive. The shop would expand its services, incorporating Juliet's suggestion of specializing in luxury and vintage car restoration alongside everyday repairs. The business plan they developed together projected strong growth, but more importantly, their personal relationship had flourished. Juliet had become a constant in his and Emma's lives, approaching their relationship with the same determination and thoughtfulness she brought to her business dealings. She never tried to buy their affection, understanding Lucas's need to provide for his daughter. Instead, she integrated into their modest lifestyle while occasionally introducing them to new experiences. Emma adored her, especially after Juliet taught her to sail a small dinghy in a protected cove, building her confidence with patient instruction. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Lucas took Juliet back to Lake Weston. He'd borrowed a friend's boat for the occasion, navigating to the same cove where they'd anchored on their first real date. "Do you remember this spot?" he asked as they dropped anchor. Juliet nodded, smiling as she gazed at the familiar shoreline. "Of course. Emma played with those inflatable toys for hours, and we talked while she napped," Lucas added, taking her hand. "That was the day I started falling in love with you." Juliet's eyes widened slightly at his words. Though their relationship had deepened considerably, neither had explicitly said those words until now. "Lucas, let me finish," he said gently. "This past year has taught me so much, about trust, about letting go of pride, about what real partnership means." He reached into his pocket and produced a small box. "I don't have billions to offer you, but I have my heart, my hands, and my promise to stand beside you through whatever life brings." He opened the box to reveal a ring not extravagant, but thoughtfully chosen and within his means. "Juliet Novak, will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes as she looked from the ring to his face. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." As they sealed the proposal with a kiss, Lucas marveled at how a broken-down boat engine had led to this moment. If someone had told him a year ago that he'd be engaged to a billionaire CEO, he would have laughed in disbelief. But Juliet wasn't just her wealth or position. She was the woman who reads stories to his daughter in emergency rooms, who understood his need for independence, who kissed him like he was the richest man in the world. 1 year later, they married in a ceremony that balanced elegance with intimacy. Emma served as flower girl, beaming with pride in her role in bringing them together, which she claimed full credit for. "If I hadn't named my dolphin Splash, Miss Juliet wouldn't have liked us so much." Their honeymoon was a sailing trip through the Greek islands, a perfect blend of luxury and simplicity. Upon their return, they moved into a new home larger than Lucas's apartment, but modest by Juliet's standards, that they'd chosen together. Emma had helped design her own bedroom, complete with an ocean theme and a window seat for reading. Lancaster Automotive thrived under Lucas's ownership. His reputation for honest work and exceptional skill brought in clients from across the region, including collectors of rare and vintage vehicles who valued his mechanical intuition. The business success was sweet, but sweeter still was the knowledge that he'd achieved it through partnership rather than charity. Juliet continued to lead Novak Industries, but with changes that reflected her evolving priorities. She established more flexible work policies for employees with families and directed the company's philanthropic foundation to focus on programs supporting single parents and vocational education. On weekends, the three of them still went fishing on the lake. They used a new boat, a joint gift to themselves, but kept the old one too, restored by Lucas as a reminder of where their story began. "Do you ever regret it?" Lucas asked Juliet one evening as they watched Emma playing in the yard of their home. "Marrying someone from such a different world." Juliet leaned against his shoulder, her wedding ring catching the sunset light. "I married a man who sees me for who I am, not what I own. Who teaches our daughter that character matters more than money. Who still fixes engines with his own hands because that's what he loves to do." She turned to face him. "The only thing I regret is that we didn't meet sooner." As dusk settled around them, Lucas reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A broken engine, a chance meeting, and the courage to bridge their different worlds had given them something precious. A family built on love, respect, and the understanding that true wealth had nothing to do with bank accounts. Emma ran to join them on the porch swing, squeezing between them with the easy confidence of a child who knows she is deeply loved. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Lucas exchanged a smile with his wife over their daughter's head, filled with gratitude for the life they were building together, a life richer than any balance sheet could measure.